Ladies and gentlemen, imagine for a moment a bird that soars effortlessly across the sky. It doesn't wonder if the wind will carry it, nor does it hesitate, questioning the boundaries of its flight. The bird simply flies. And yet, if we listen closely, we often hear voices within us, whispers of doubt, or perhaps shouts of fear reminding us of what we cannot do. We hold these limitations so tightly that they come to define us. But here's the truth: the only limits you have are the limits you believe. We are born into this world with limitless potential. As children, we don't hesitate to explore, to try, to stumble, and then to rise again. But somewhere along the way, we begin to accept ideas of what is possible, of what is realistic, and most tragically, of what we are capable of. We forget that limits are not inherent in the world, but are simply constructs of our own mind. Belief is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience, yet it is often misunderstood. It shapes not only our thoughts and perceptions, but also our reality. Beliefs are not concrete truths, but rather dynamic, fluid concepts created by the mind. The nature of belief is that it is malleable, evolving, and deeply subjective. Too often, we treat our beliefs as fixed, as though they are unchanging facts about who we are, what we can do, and what is possible in life. In reality, beliefs are simply patterns of thought that have been reinforced over time, and they are more like filters than absolute truths. In many ways, beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. They are not passive, they actively shape our behavior and decisions. The mind, rather than being a neutral observer, constantly filters the world through the lens of our beliefs, picking out what aligns with them and ignoring what doesn't. If you believe that life is a struggle, you are more likely to notice hardships and difficulties, reinforcing that view. On the other hand, if you believe that life can be an adventure full of learning and growth, you will seek out challenges as opportunities for development, not as threats. What's truly remarkable is that we often don't recognize how deeply beliefs influence our lives. We take them for granted as truths rather than seeing them as mental constructs. This is where the danger lies. When we don't question our beliefs, they can lock us into a narrow view of what is possible. We become trapped by our own minds. A person who believes they are unworthy, for example, may never pursue their dreams or seek the love and respect they deserve because their belief defines what is possible for them. In contrast, someone who believes in their intrinsic worth will act from a place of confidence and courage, taking risks and pursuing what might have seemed unattainable. But the beauty of belief is that it can change. If beliefs are learned, then they can also be unlearned. Just as we learn to believe certain things about ourselves and the world, we can choose to challenge and transform those beliefs. This requires awareness, the awareness that our beliefs are not reality, but interpretations of reality. And with that awareness, we can begin to create new patterns of thought that empower us rather than limit us. This process doesn't require grand gestures or monumental shifts overnight. It starts with small moments of recognition, recognizing when a limiting belief surfaces and choosing in that moment to question it. The key is to recognize that beliefs are not fixed and unchangeable. They are flexible and open to transformation. They are the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what is possible, and those stories can be rewritten at any time. The more we recognize the power of our beliefs, the more we realize that we are not confined by them. The limitations we place on ourselves are not inherently real. They are only as real as the stories we continue to tell ourselves. And when we challenge those stories, we can free ourselves to live in a much broader, more expansive world. In the end, beliefs shape our world in ways both subtle and profound. But they are not permanent truths. They are the frameworks we create to navigate life. And the moment we become aware that we are the creators of these frameworks, we also realize that we can reshape them to reflect the vastness of our true potential. The idea of boundaries is deeply ingrained in our consciousness, yet when we look closely, we begin to realize that most of the limits we perceive are not actual constraints, they are illusions. Boundaries often feel like immovable walls that separate us from our goals, desires, or dreams. We think we are held back by the circumstances of our lives, the limitations of our environment, or the restrictions imposed by others. But what if these boundaries are not as solid as we imagine? What if they are merely the product of the way we perceive the world, shaped by our beliefs, fears, and past experiences? One of the most insidious aspects of boundaries is that they seem to be external to us, as though they exist independently of our thoughts and actions. For example, we might say, I am too old to start something new, or I don't have the resources to make a change. These statements reflect a perception of external boundaries, age, money, time that feel real and concrete. However, when we examine them more closely, we often find that they are merely reflections of the stories we tell ourselves. These external barriers are often not as fixed as we think. They are shaped by cultural norms, societal expectations, and the way we have been conditioned to view ourselves in relation to the world. The truth is that boundaries are often arbitrary. They are not inherent in the nature of reality, but are created by the limitations we place on ourselves. Consider the example of someone who dreams of becoming an artist but believes they lack the talent or the opportunity to do so. To them, the boundary is clear. The belief that they are not capable is the wall that stops them. Yet when we look at artists throughout history, we find countless examples of people who broke through similar boundaries not because they were inherently different or more talented, but because they refused to accept the limits imposed by society or by their own minds. In fact, the very idea of limitation can be a trap. When we see boundaries as rigid and insurmountable, we stop questioning them. We stop exploring the spaces beyond them. But if we allow ourselves to consider that these boundaries are not absolute, we open ourselves to an entirely new way of thinking. The boundaries we perceive may not be boundaries at all, but simply opportunities for growth and exploration. What seems like an obstacle might in fact be an invitation to challenge our assumptions, to stretch beyond what we thought was possible. The power of recognizing the illusion of boundaries lies in the freedom it brings. When we stop seeing obstacles as fixed and inevitable, we realize that we are not prisoners of our circumstances, but participants in a vast unfolding reality. Life is not a series of impenetrable walls, it is a series of paths, many of which are waiting to be discovered. The key is to change how we approach these perceived barriers. Instead of accepting them as unchangeable, we can see them as invitations to step outside our comfort zone, to push the edges of our own limitations and explore the unknown. In the end, the boundaries that we experience are often self-imposed illusions. They are not walls to keep us out, but challenges to overcome. Once we realize this, the world opens up in ways we never imagined. The true limit is not in the world around us, but in the limitations we believe to be true. The moment we let go of those beliefs, the boundaries begin to dissolve, and what we once saw as impossible becomes possible. In life, we often find ourselves caught between two seemingly opposing forces: the desire to exert effort and the yearning to allow things to unfold naturally. On the one hand, we are taught to work hard, to strive, to push ourselves toward our goals. On the other hand, we also hear about the importance of going with the flow, of surrendering to the natural rhythm of life and trusting that things will work out in their own time. These two concepts, effort and flow, may seem contradictory, but they are in fact two sides of the same coin. The dance between them is where true mastery lies. When we exert effort, we are actively engaged in the process of creation. We set intentions, make plans, and take actions to bring our desires into reality. There is a sense of control, of purpose, and of direction. Effort is necessary for progress. Without it, we remain stagnant, waiting for things to happen rather than making them happen. In this way, effort becomes the force that propels us forward. Yet when effort is taken too far, it can become counterproductive. If we grip too tightly to our goals, if we become overly attached to outcomes, we risk losing sight of the bigger picture. We become so focused on the end result that we forget to enjoy the journey. This is where the concept of flow comes into play. Flow is that state of effortless ease where everything seems to align perfectly. It is the feeling of being in the zone where time fades away and the task at hand becomes almost automatic. Flow is not about forcing things to happen, but about allowing them to unfold naturally. It is the art of surrendering to the present moment, trusting that, at the right time, everything will fall into place. In moments of flow, we feel a deep sense of connection to the task, to the process, and to the world around us. There is no resistance, no struggle, just a quiet confidence that everything is as it should be. The challenge is finding the balance between effort and flow, for both are necessary. If we rely too much on effort, we risk burning out, becoming frustrated, or even losing touch with the very reason we started in the first place. Effort without flow can feel like pushing a boulder up a hill, exhausting and ultimately futile. On the other hand, if we lean too heavily on flow and neglect the necessary effort, we may find ourselves drifting aimlessly, waiting for inspiration to strike without taking any concrete steps toward our goals. Without effort, flow becomes little more than daydreaming or wishful thinking. The beauty of the dance between effort and flow lies in their complementarity. Effort provides the structure, the momentum, and the direction, while flow brings ease, creativity, and spontaneity. When they are in harmony, we find ourselves moving forward effortlessly, as though we are being carried along by an invisible current. In such moments, effort feels less like struggle and more like a natural extension of who we are, a seamless part of the process. Ultimately, the dance between effort and flow teaches us a profound lesson that life is not about forcing our will upon the world, but about learning to move with it, to align our actions with the natural rhythms of the universe. When we can do this, we find that our efforts become more productive, more joyful, and more aligned with the unfolding of our deepest desires. The true power lies not in rigid control, but in the graceful flow of life where effort and ease meet in perfect harmony. The present moment is often overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted. We spend so much of our time dwelling on the past or anxiously anticipating the future that we forget the only time we truly have is now. The past, with its memories and regrets, is a shadow that no longer exists in reality. The future, with its uncertainties and possibilities, is a projection of our mind that has yet to come into being. And yet, the present moment, the now, is the only time in which we can actually live. When we focus on the present, we tap into an extraordinary power that is often obscured by our habitual thinking. Our minds are constantly racing, jumping from one thought to the next, tethered to the past or caught in the web of future possibilities. We are so conditioned to live in these mental states that we forget what it means to be fully present. The present moment is not a mere abstraction, it is the gateway to life itself. It is where all action, all experience, all growth happens. There is a profound simplicity in the now. When we drop our worries about what has already happened or what might happen, we suddenly find that life unfolds with ease. Our senses come alive to the world around us. The warmth of the sun on our skin, the sound of birds singing in the distance, the feel of our breath entering and leaving our body, all of these things are present in the now, and they are always available to us. Yet when our attention is scattered in the past or future, we miss them. We miss the richness of life as it is happening, right here and right now. The mind, in its ceaseless chatter, often makes us believe that we must always be planning, preparing, or worrying. But this is a myth. When we are caught up in the past, we are living in memories which are no longer real. When we are focused on the future, we are living in anticipation which is not yet real. Neither of these mental states can offer us anything of true value. The present moment is where true power lies because it is the only time in which we can act, create, and change. It is the only time in which we can experience life in its fullest. Living in the now doesn't mean ignoring the past or abandoning the future. It means recognizing that both the past and the future are simply mental constructs, and that our true power exists in the present. The past can teach us lessons, but it no longer exists in the external world. The future holds potential, but it has not yet arrived. The only time in which we can affect change is in the present moment. When we choose to focus our attention on the now, we step out of the endless loop of worry and regret, and we begin to experience life more fully. We discover that there is peace in the present. The need to control everything or to predict every outcome fades away, and in its place there is a quiet sense of trust. We no longer feel the need to force things to happen, because we understand that they will unfold as they are meant to. The present moment, in its simplicity, is a wellspring of creativity, clarity, and contentment. In a world that encourages us to constantly strive for more, to always be busy or productive, the power of now offers a different kind of liberation. It is the freedom to stop chasing what we don't have and to simply be with what is. In that stillness, we find that everything we truly need is already here right now. The present moment is the canvas on which we paint our lives. It is the point from which we move forward. And when we live fully in the now, we realize that we are not limited by the past or the future. We are free to create, to experience, and to live in the fullness of the present. The mind, often described as the most powerful tool we possess, holds within it an infinite well of potential. Yet, for most of us, this vast capacity remains untapped or underutilized. We tend to operate within the confines of what we believe we can do, often limiting ourselves by the mental barriers we create, barriers shaped by past experiences, societal conditioning, and self-imposed limitations. But if we could only see the full scope of what the mind is capable of, we would realize that there are no real limits to what we can achieve or create. At its core, the mind is not a fixed, static entity. It is fluid, adaptable, and endlessly creative. The human brain is capable of extraordinary feats, from solving complex problems to imagining entire worlds that do not exist. What makes the mind truly powerful is its ability to shape reality. Our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions form the lens through which we experience life. And because the mind is so deeply connected to our reality, by shifting our thoughts and beliefs, we can dramatically alter the course of our lives. One of the most remarkable aspects of the mind is its ability to generate new ideas, concepts, and solutions. Creativity is not confined to the so-called creative fields like art or music. It is a fundamental capacity of the mind, accessible to everyone. The mind is a vast network of interconnected thoughts, memories, and associations, and with the right intention and focus, it can produce an endless stream of insights, innovations, and breakthroughs. However, most of us only tap into a fraction of this potential. We get stuck in habitual thinking patterns, often recycling old ideas and solutions rather than exploring the vast landscape of possibilities the mind offers. The mind's potential is also limitless in its ability to adapt and learn. The concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself and form new neural connections, shows us that the mind is not set in stone. With practice, intention, and persistence, we can literally rewire our brains to think differently, to overcome fears, and to develop new skills. The idea that we are somehow limited by our age, intelligence, or background is an illusion. The mind, when nurtured and trained, can grow, evolve, and expand indefinitely. It is capable of learning new languages, mastering complex skills, and even healing the body through the power of thought. This boundless potential of the mind also extends to our ability to perceive and create our reality. Many of the limitations we encounter in life are self-imposed. We construct mental models of the world based on our upbringing, cultural conditioning, and past experiences, and we live within those models as if they were unchangeable laws of nature. But these mental models are not immutable truths, they are simply the stories we tell ourselves. Once we recognize that we have the power to change these stories, to challenge the assumptions that limit us, we begin to unlock the vast potential of the mind. The mind is not confined to the present moment or to the material world. It is capable of transcending time and space, accessing deep levels of intuition, insight, and wisdom. We all have the potential to tap into a higher state of consciousness, one that connects us to a universal intelligence that is far greater than our individual minds. Through practices like meditation, mindfulness, or creative expression, we can quiet the noise of the everyday mind and open ourselves to this deeper, infinite well of knowledge and understanding. In essence, the potential of the mind is not just about intellectual capability or the ability to solve problems, it is about the capacity for transformation, growth, and creation. The mind is a tool that can shape not only our own lives, but also the world around us. By recognizing and embracing its infinite potential, we can break free from the limitations we've placed on ourselves and step into a reality that is far richer, more expansive, and more creative than we ever thought possible. The mind is not a fixed instrument, it is a powerful, ever-evolving force, and when we align with its true potential, there is no limit to what we can achieve. Letting go of control is often one of the most difficult yet transformative actions we can take in life. From a young age, we are taught to plan, to organize, and to anticipate the future. We are conditioned to believe that success comes from managing every aspect of our lives with precision, that we must control our circumstances, our time, and even our emotions in order to achieve our goals. However, in our pursuit of control, we often overlook the subtle yet profound wisdom in surrendering, allowing life to unfold as it will, without the need to force or manipulate outcomes. Control, at its core, stems from a deep-seated fear, the fear of uncertainty. We want to know what will happen, how it will happen, and when it will happen. This desire for certainty gives us the illusion of security, as if by controlling the details of life, we can shield ourselves from the unpredictability of the world. But the more we try to control, the more we create a false sense of stability, and the more we resist the natural flow of life. We fight against what is, believing that by doing so we can shape the world to fit our desires. In reality, this fight often leads to frustration, exhaustion, and a sense of disconnection from the present moment. When we let go of control, we stop trying to dictate the course of events and instead open ourselves to the natural unfolding of life. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility or giving up on our goals. Rather, it means releasing the need to micromanage every step of the journey. It means trusting that the universe, whether through people, circumstances, or experiences, will provide us with exactly what we need at the right time. Letting go of control doesn't remove our agency or diminish our efforts. It frees us from the burden of carrying the weight of every decision, every outcome, and every expectation. One of the most profound ways we experience this shift is through the acceptance of uncertainty. Life is inherently unpredictable, and no amount of planning or effort can eliminate that fact. When we stop clinging to certainty and embrace the unknown, we begin to find peace in the present moment. We no longer need to have all the answers, and we no longer need to control the future. Instead, we learn to trust in the unfolding process, knowing that even in moments of doubt or struggle, something valuable is being cultivated. Letting go of control also means releasing our attachment to specific outcomes. So often we define success by how closely the results match our expectations. If things don't unfold as we planned, we may feel disappointed, frustrated, or even defeated. But when we let go of rigid expectations, we make space for unexpected opportunities and experiences that might be even better than what we initially envisioned. The beauty of life lies in its unpredictability, and sometimes the most transformative moments come when we allow ourselves to be surprised by the way things unfold. This surrender is not a passive act, it is an active, conscious choice to trust. It is a choice to trust that we do not need to control every aspect of life in order to thrive. It is a recognition that life is not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced, felt, and embraced. Letting go of control invites us to step into the flow of life, to dance with the rhythms of the universe, rather than constantly pushing against them. It brings us into alignment with the natural order of things, where we are no longer fighting for our place in the world, but flowing effortlessly with it. In the end, letting go of control doesn't mean relinquishing our ability to act or make choices. It means recognizing that we are not the ultimate architects of our lives. There is a greater force at work, one that moves through us and the world around us. When we stop trying to control it, we find that life becomes richer, more expansive, and far less stressful. By releasing the need for control, we free ourselves to experience life more fully, trusting that the universe has a plan for us, one far greater than we could ever have imagined on our own.